The Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad is located on 225 10th Street, 225 10th Street in Boone, Iowa, and also features train rides such as the trolley, dinner, picnic, and dessert and diesel and steam excursion trains, which is a 1920s excursion train it hauls. The Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad was started in in 1983 by a group of volunteers who wanted to preserve a scenic section of the former Fort Dodge, Des Moines, and Southern Railroad. The original track was built in the 1890s and electrified in 1907 after massive flooding damaged the power plant, which is located in Fraser, Iowa, providing electricity to the line. In 1954, the railroads soon turned to diesel equipment to pull its trains. The Chicago and Northwestern purchased the entire Fort Dodge Des Moines Southern system in 1968. Shortly after acquiring the line, the Chicago Northwestern began to place portions of it up for abandonment. In the year 1983, an 11-mile section of the line was purchased by the Boone Historical Railroad Society and its 2254 charter members for $50,000. This stretch of track winding through the Des Moines River Valley includes a 156 tall bridge spanning Bass Point Creek. The line runs from Boone, Iowa through the old coal mining town of Fraser, Iowa. Fraser, Iowa is where the locomotive hooks up on the other end of the excursion train when heading back to Boone. And even if it's leading first, heading towards Fraser. The railroad was an immediate success that has expanded regularly since its founding. The permanent station, James H. Andrew Railroad Museum, and ticket office buildings in Boone, Iowa can be seen at the Boone Depot as well. Also, the train crosses the tallest steel trestle bridge in the world and then passes by the YMCA camp and crosses the Des Moines River nearby. Those signals must be held by the since the railroad, the beginning of the station. Right behind me is Chicago South Shore and South Bend 106. Chicago South Shore and South Bend 106 was built by Pullman in 1926 and is an electric and urban car. and is the first Chicago South Shore and South Bend 106 built. Chicago South Shore and South Bend 106 was lengthened and motorized after World War II. Also, Chicago South Shore and South Bend 106 once ran on the Chicago South Shore and South Bend Interurban Line in Indiana and Chicago suburbs, and even ran in Chicago many years ago. Then in 1984 came to be part of the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, and also it is used to run on the trolley line. It used to run on the trolley line that goes through downtown Boone and the backyards of Boone, and then it was converted to being unpowered and used as a coach, and is used on the excursion train mostly for the fall season, and used with most train cars during Thomas the Tank Engine's visit and Santa Express these days. Also, in like fall of 2016, it ran under its own power and also used for running on the trolley line, and also it's like used for electric weekend event on the railroad as well. What you see right behind me is Chicago South Shore and South Bend 39. Chicago South Shore and South Bend 39 was built by Standard Steel Car Company in 1929 and is an electric interurban car, and is the first Chicago South Shore and South Bend 39 built. Chicago South Shore and South Bend 39 once ran on the Chicago South Shore and South Bend Interurban Line in Indiana and Chicago suburbs, and even ran in Chicago many years ago. Then in 1984 came to be part of the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, and also converted to being unpowered and used as a coach, and is used on the excursion train for fall seasons, and used with most of the train cars during Thomas the Tank Engine's visit and Santa Express. Chicago Northwestern 96 was built by Pullman Standard in 1961 and is a bi-level coach. Chicago Northwestern 96 was once used on Chicago Northwestern passenger trains many years ago, and was used as part of a commuter train of the railroad. Then later it was used on the Metra commuter line as Metra 7747, and would run on trains from locations in and out of Chicago, Illinois. Then later the car was retired and then stored in Kansas City, Missouri, and then in 2013 the car was purchased by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, and repainted in Chicago Northwestern colors, and even used for the passenger trains sometimes on the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad's excursion train as well. Southern Pacific 9044 was built in 1950 and is an observation coach. Southern Pacific 9044 was used on the City of San Francisco passenger train many years ago. Also, this car was originally a blunt end Pullman sleeper, which was designed to be the last car on the train. Also, the car was retired in 1968. Then in 1985, Southern Pacific 9044 was donated to the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad. And also the car was also numbered 85 and repainted and seen in a Union Pacific paint scheme. Also, the car was converted into an observation lounge car and was restored for operation and even used part of the dinner, picnic, and dessert train, and passengers riding aboard on it and riding through the valley on it and as well, and even having delicious food on board. Union Pacific 4810 was built by American Car and Foundry Company in 1949 and is a dining car. Union Pacific 4810 was once used on a passenger train called the City of Los Angeles many years ago. Then in 1991, Union Pacific 4810 was retired and then later came to be part of the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, and was restored for operation and even used part of the dinner, picnic, and dessert train, and passengers riding aboard on it and riding through the valley on it and as well, and even having delicious food on board. Canadian National 6540 was built by General Motors Division in Canada in 1958 and is the A 1400th diesel locomotive built by that factory and is an FP9A type diesel locomotive. This locomotive was originally built to work for the Canadian National Railroad many years ago and was even used to haul passenger trains many years ago on the Canadian National Railroad. Then later on, this locomotive was utilized by Canada's VIA Rail passenger system and was numbered as VIA via, however you want to say it, VIA 6540. Then in 1991 the locomotive was retired. Then in 2002 the locomotive was purchased by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa and was restored to operation and repainted into a Chicago Northwestern paint scheme, and however, it never even worked for the Chicago Northwestern. And like I mentioned earlier, this locomotive spent most of its life in Canada till 2002. The locomotive is normally used to haul the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad's dinner, dessert, and picnic trains, and is normally seen hooked onto the yellow coaches, pushing backwards towards Fraser and then coming forward when rides on board happen. Also, it is sometimes out of service and a different locomotive is hooked onto the dinner, dessert, and picnic train, but 6540 is still used for it mostly. And also, it is not just used for pulling the picnic, dinner, and dessert train. It is in the winter. The yellow coaches are put at the back of the excursion trains and excursion cars, and this locomotive is also pulling the train as well. Chicago Northwestern 11136 was built somewhere around the 1900s and is a steel bay window caboose. And Chicago Northwestern 11136 was used on freight trains on the Chicago Northwestern Railroad and was also used on as the train crew's office and is one of many Chicago Northwestern cabooses used on the Chicago Northwestern Railroad as well. Then later on, Chicago Northwestern 11136 came to be part of the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad and used on excursion train sets as well whenever the train is running. Chicago Rock Island and Pacific 17051. Chicago Rock Island and Pacific 17051 was built like in the 1950s or earlier maybe, and is a steel cupola caboose. This caboose was used for the Chicago Rock Island and Pacific Railroad and was used on freight trains on the Chicago Rock Island and Pacific Railroad as the train crew's office many years ago. And one time it was even seen behind a piggyback semi-trailer train. And then later, this caboose came to be part of the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, and also part of the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad, and you'll even see Chicago Rock Island and Pacific 17051 has the logo on the cupola as well, and is also used part of the excursion train set a lot as well, except during the Pumpkin Train, A Day Out with Thomas, on Thomas's train, but only for the excursion run. Chicago Northwestern 8646 was built around the 1900s and was originally built as a heavyweight baggage car. Chicago Northwestern 8646 was once a baggage coach many years ago and was used in passenger service on the Chicago Northwestern Railroad and used for carrying baggage on board passenger trains, and was even used those times on express trains for the Chicago Northwestern. Then later the car was converted to a maintenance of way service coach for the Chicago Northwestern. Then later the car was retired and also sat beside the trolley line of the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in downtown Boone, Iowa. And then in 2011 the car was moved to the railroad's property for restoration and then converted into a concession coach, and is often coupled to the train for rides. Also, passengers can even grab a bite to eat or a drink while riding the train, and even stand by the doorway and even enjoy the view and fresh air, and even sit at the table and enjoying their food. Also, the cars even sell souvenir as well whenever it's arranged for the excursion train, and it's not just food and drinks they serve. It's also souvenirs and food and drinks they sell on board. Chicago, Rock Island, and Pacific 2584 was built by the Standard Steel Car Company in 1925 and is a commuter car. Chicago, Rock Island, and Pacific 2584 was once used on the Chicago, Rock Island, and Pacific Railroad on passenger trains with commuter coaches, and these kind of coaches were known as Capone cars. Rock Island commuter coaches like 2584 have unusual Harriman roof, named for the Harriman interests which controlled the Rock Island, Southern Pacific, and other railroads during the first decades of this century. Then, later on, Chicago, Rock Island, and Pacific 2584 was retired and then later came to be part of the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, and is used on the excursion trains most of this car's these days, and passengers riding on board as well is part of the 1920s excursion coaches as well. 2313. Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western 3213 was built by Pullman in 1925 and is an MU car. This coach was originally used for the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western as Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western 313. And then in 1930 renumbered as Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western 2213. Then, in 1961, given to the Erie Lackawanna as Erie Lackawanna 3213. Then, in 1976, the coach was transferred to the Conrail as Conrail 3213. Then, in 1983, used on the New Jersey Transit as New Jersey Transit 3213. Then, sometime after 1983, the coach was retired and used to have pantographs, and they got removed, and it used to be an electric coach. And then the coach also went to be part of the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, and is often being seen used as part of the excursion train for the railroad and passengers riding aboard the coach whenever it is used part of the excursion train sets as well. Chicago and Northwestern 12517 was built around the 1900s and is a transfer caboose. Chicago Northwestern 12517 was used on as a maintenance of way caboose for the Chicago Northwestern Railroad and was part of the MOW, maintenance of way, short for maintenance of way, equipment for the railroad many years ago. Then later on, Chicago Northwestern 12517 came to be part of the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad and to being part of the excursion train and is used as the open air car whenever passengers ride on the car as well, and is known to be a Valley View car as well for the railroad. Charles City Western 50 was built by the McGuire Cummings Company in Paris, Illinois in 1915 and is an interurban combine trolley car. Charles City Western 50 was used on the Charles City Western Railway from 1915 to 1964. Then in 1964, the trolley was transferred to the Iowa Terminal Railroad as Iowa Terminal 101. Also, this trolley was originally painted in Pullman green. Was originally painted in Pullman green color, and sometime in its later life, it was painted in the present colors of orange and maroon. This car is even known to be an example of a combination baggage, mail, and passenger type of interurban car. Also, this trolley ran between Charles City, Iowa, and nearby communities of Marble Rock and Caldwell, all in the northeastern part of Iowa. Then the trolley was sent to Mount Pleasant, Iowa, and restored and back to its original number and road name as Charles City Western 50. Also, Charles City Western 50 then came to be part of the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, and is used for operations on the trolley line going through backyards of the neighborhoods and downtown Boone, and also it is even used mostly on Saturdays from Memorial Day to late October, and is used a lot for the Thomas the Tank Engine event also. You can see right behind me is Minneapolis and St. Louis 244. Minneapolis and St. Louis 244 was built by Alco in Schenectady, New York in 1951 and is the 795/77th diesel locomotive built by that factory and is an Alco RS1 type diesel locomotive. This locomotive was originally used for the Lake Superior-Nishpeming Railroad up in Michigan as Lake Superior-Nishpeming 1002 hauling iron ore. Then in 1967, the locomotive was purchased by the Calumet and Hecla Railroad and renumbered as Calumet and Hecla Railroad 205. Then purchased by the Continental Grain Company in Pickering, Iowa as Continental Grain Company 205, where it was used to switch cars at the facility south of Marshallton, Iowa. Then in 1996, the locomotive was donated to the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, and it was still numbered 205. And then, sometime between June 2007 and June 2008, it was repainted as Minneapolis and St. Louis 244 to resemble the original one. And also the locomotive is sometimes seen being used to haul the excursion train through the valley and all the way to Fraser and back. The water tower was built around the 1900s and has been around for a long time. This water tower has been here and used for filling up water into the steam engine's water tank. This water tower has been brought here to the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad depot and is used for filling into the railroad steam locomotive these days. The steam locomotive from China, of course, as well. Also, the water tower even has the railroad's logo seen on it as well. Chicago Northwestern 1003 was built by Electromotor Division in 1942 and is the 1553rd diesel locomotive built by that factory and is an NW2 type diesel locomotive. This locomotive was originally used for the Grand Trunk Western Railroad as Grand Trunk Western 7914 and was a switch engine in the yard. Then in the early 1970s, the locomotive was sold to Precision National Corporation in Mount Vernon, Illinois, where it was rebuilt and sold to the Chicago Northwestern in 1973 as Chicago Northwestern 1003. Also, the locomotive worked the Chicago Northwestern Railroad. Then, in 1986, the locomotive was bought by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, and used for operations and used for hauling the excursion train mostly, and sometimes moving equipment around, and has been used and even used as a substitute locomotive sometimes for hauling the dinner, picnic, and dessert train while 6540 is out of service. And also it is even used for hauling a works train sometimes as well. And when Thomas the Tank Engine is visiting the railroad, this locomotive is used to pull the train's consist as well when Thomas is hooked onto the train. What you see right behind me is Chicago Northwestern 400. Chicago and Northwestern 400 was built around the 1900s and is a heavyweight passenger car. Also, the coach is named Kate Shelley. This car was used for the Chicago and Northwestern Railroad many years ago and was used on passenger trains on the Chicago and Northwestern Railroad many years ago as well. Then, later on, it was retired and came to be put on display at the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa. Also, today, it sits in the parking lot at the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, and it is even used sometimes as an entertainment car, like, for example, during Thomas the Tank Engine's visit, would also be used as the storytelling area as well. Also, it is like a museum car as well. Missouri Pacific 13317 was built by the Missouri Pacific Railroad DeSoto shops in DeSoto, Missouri in 1948 and is an all-steel cupola caboose. This caboose was used many years ago on the Missouri Pacific Railroad behind freight trains as the train crew's office when being used on the railroad as well. It was then rebuilt by the railroad shops in Sedalia, Missouri between 1966 and 1971. Then later on this caboose was retired and it was acquired by James H. Andrew, who had it in his backyard in Jefferson, Iowa, next to the replica depot he built, and had his collection of railroad memorabilia inside it. It was also added with the Chicago Northwestern logo, but it was never owned by that railroad. In 2011, he made a generous donation to the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad with the depot. The items he had inside the caboose, along with the caboose itself, which is why the museum was named after him. The caboose was soon moved to the site. Today it can be found here at the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, next to the James H. Andrew Museum, where a lot of the collection James donated is kept inside as well. Chicago Great Western 606 was built by Pullman Standard in 1946 and is a center cupola caboose. Chicago Great Western 606 was used behind freight trains on the Chicago Great Western Railroad as the train crew's office many years ago. Then later on, Chicago Great Western 606 was retired and came to be part of the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, and it got put on display when the James H. Andrew building was completed, and it was rolled on to these tracks in like in late 2012 or around 2013. And also today it is seen standing right here on display on this set of tracks just right beside the James H. Andrew Museum building as well. This depot is a replica train depot that was built in like the 1980s, and also it probably looks like a Chicago Northwestern depot, but this depot was built for the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad, and also it used to have the museum housed inside till 2011 when the James H. Andrew Museum was under construction and opened in 2012 when the collection was growing. And it has a gift shop. Also, it has a gift shop and a model train on the ceiling, running on the wall, running as well. And it also is where you can buy your tickets for the train as well. Chicago South Shore and South Bend 38 was built by Standard Steel Car Company in 1929 and is an electric interurban car and is the first Chicago South Shore and South Bend 38 built. Chicago South Shore and South Bend 38 once ran on the Chicago South Shore and South Bend interurban line in Indiana and Chicago suburbs, and even ran in Chicago many years ago. Then in 1984 came to be part of the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, and also converted to being unpowered and used as a coach, and is used on the excursion train for the fall season and used with most of the train cars during Thomas the Tank Engine's visit and Santa Express.
What you see right behind me is Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western 3207.
Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western 3207 was built by Pullman in 1925 and is an MU car. This coach was originally used for the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western as Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western 307. Then in 1930, renumbered as Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western 2207. Then in 1961, given to Erie, Lackawanna as Erie, Lackawanna 3207. Then in 1976, the coach was transferred to the Conrail as Conrail 3207. Then in 1983, used on the New Jersey Transit as New Jersey Transit 3207. Then sometime after 1983, the coach was retired and used to have pantographs, and they got removed, and it used to be an electric coach. And then the coach also went to be part of the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, and is often seen being used part of the excursion train for the railroad, and passengers riding aboard the coach whenever it is used is part of the excursion train set as well. Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western 3218 was built by Pullman in 1925 and is an MU car. This coach was originally used for the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western as Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western 318. Then in 1930, renumbered as Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western 2218. Then in 1961, given to the Erie, Lackawanna as Erie, Lackawanna 3218. Then in 1976, the coach was transferred to the Conrail as Conrail 3218. Then in 1983, used on the New Jersey Transit as New Jersey Transit 3218. Then sometime after 1983, the coach was retired and used to have pantographs, and they got removed, and it used to be an electric coach. Then the coach also went to be part of the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, and is often seen being used part of the excursion train set for the railroad, and passengers riding aboard the coach whenever it is being used part of the excursion train sets as well. Train set. Also, the car was one time painted black and then later painted to green. Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad 9101 was built by Pullman in 1925 and is a MU car. This coach was originally used for the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railroad as Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western 319. Then, in 1930, renumbered as Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western 2219. Then, in 1961, given to Erie, Lackawanna as Erie, Lackawanna 3219. Then, in 1976, the coach was transferred to the Conrail as Conrail 3219. Then, in 1938, was used on the New Jersey Transit as New Jersey Transit 3219. Then, sometime after 1983, the coach was retired and used to have pantographs, and they got removed, and it used to be an electric coach. Then, the coach also went to be part of the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, and numbered as Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad 9101, and is often seen being used part of the excursion train for the railroad, and passengers riding aboard the coach whenever it is used part of the excursion train set as well. Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western 3238 was built by Pullman in 1925 and is an MU car. This coach was originally used for the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western as Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western 338. Then, in 1930, renumbered as Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western 3238. Then, in 1961, given to Erie, Lackawanna as Erie, Lackawanna 3238. Then, in 1967, the coach was transferred to the Conrail as Conrail 3238. Then, in 1983, used on the New Jersey Transit as New Jersey Transit 3238. Then, sometime after 1983, the coach was retired and used to have pantographs, and they got removed, and it used to be an electric coach. And then the coach also went to be part of the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, and is often seen being used part of the excursion train for the railroad, and passengers riding on board the coach whenever it is used part of the train set as well. Okay, I've showed you the exhibits inside the James H. Andrew Museum. Ticket is required to visit the museum, but when you're inside the museum, like I said, ticket is required. So make sure you present a ticket when you go inside and look at the exhibits. And I'll show you what all has changed since part 1 that I've made of this episode. And here's part 2 of what I'm going to show you. So I'll get behind the camera and here we go. Okay, first of all, we're going to go down this little hallway. Here's a cardboard cutout of Mamie and Dwight Eisenhower. And that's their home and birthplace and museum in Boone, if you ever want to go there. Look at this quilt of the Boone and Scenic. Some that were already put on this quilt. Let's look at this case right here. There's a Lionel train. So we walk down here, and this is an Andy Blomberg. This is a schedule, and these are N-scale trains, and some steam locomotives, and diesels. This one, Streamliner passenger trains. The first successful Zephyr. This is what the Pioneer Zephyr originally looked like when it was built, and here's what it looks like today as an example. And so if you look at this car right here, I'm going to show you this car. And this car right here actually went to the Mark Twain Zephyr when it was on display in Mount Pleasant, Iowa. and it is still with it today, but at the Wisconsin Great Northern Railroad. And that's an old-time train up there. 3 actually, and how this Streamline era became more modern-like. And to Amtrak, and some freight cars in this case right here. Here's a donation this looks like it was made from. Looks like this was all donated by some gentleman to me. And this shows you how the 2 railroads met in Promontory, Utah, the Jupiter and 119. So let's go around the museum. This is behind that door is actually access to the gift shop. And this is a theater room right here that was just put up. It's kind of dark in here, so I'm going to talk quieter because someone's enjoying something in here. But you can see the pictures on the wall. I'll just look at this. I don't know if you can see clearly, but I apologize. But there's a video playing. And let's go back in the exhibit gallery. I think they just built this a long time ago. A lot of items in here were all donated by James H. Andrew. That's from the Chicago Northwestern Business, and that used to be on display in the depot before this building was constructed. There's modeled the Kate Shelley Bridge, which was named after her when she was a hero and saved lives of people when a bridge was washed out. And here's a handcar right here. This is modeled the water tower that's outside. And look at this case. I'll pan along if you want to pause and look at everything. And wow, look at all these. This is a model of an electric locomotive that ran on the tracks outside. This is a Dodge power plant in Fraser, Iowa, when it was still inactive. When it was still active, I should say. Old-fashioned cameras, old-fashioned ticket punchers. Look at this bench. Pretty cool, huh? There's the Santa Fe Streamline unit. Pictures of the 8419 when it looked like that when it arrived here. And there's a speeder right here, and a rail bike, and some crewman's hats. And wow, pretty cool. And so let's look at this right here. And look at this case right here. Look at that old switchboard. And here's a replica train depot that was part of James H. Andrews' donation. And look at this board right here, showing how the railroads changed over the years. And here's some controls from an old diesel locomotive. Looks like these are from a Rock Island diesel engine that may have been cut up years ago. And here's some more of this. Oh! Here's Midwest Central Railroad and Midwest Electric Railway in Mount Pleasant, Iowa. Something special. Wow. Doesn't all this look pretty cool or what? Let's go along this wall right here. There's a model of the GG1 in that case. Look at all these old items in this case. That lantern, that hat. Here's a china plate on the rails. Models of trolleys and electric locomotives in this case right here. And that's a model of a Fort Collins trolley, and all these are Bernie trolley cars. I think that's the 21, which still is running on the line today. And I believe it's hard. Oh, 2000, I see. And these are old seats. And also, look at this model, this EMD locomotive. Look at these gold trains. This looks like American Flyer. This HO model, the Rock Island train, called the Rock Island Rocket. And look at this, all this. And these lanterns as well. Here's streamline trains. Got some model of the Big Boy, the Hiawatha, and the M10,000. If you want to pause and read what that says, feel free to. And look at all these bells, headlights, and wow. These are mannequins wearing the uniforms. Pretty cool, huh? Oh, that number plate came off of Union Pacific 824, which was scrapped years ago. Isn't all this pretty cool or what? And if you press this button right here, it will make that trolley move down the tracks.
We met a bunch of guys from
I think I'll take it all the way around. Trolley Town. Pause it, stop it right there. Look at this model of this HO scale model railroad. Santa Fe. That is an EMD switcher. There's a model of the Big Boy. Doesn't this look pretty cool or what? That's a Rock Illinois Central caboose at the back. And if you wondered about that projector hanging from the ceiling right there, they do slideshows in here every once in a while, and that screen is pulled down as well. What you see right behind me is Chicago and Northwestern 10856. Chicago and Northwestern 10856 was probably built somewhere in the 1960s and is a bay window caboose. This caboose was used on freight trains on the Chicago Northwestern Railroad and was also used as the train crew's office, and is one of many Chicago Northwestern cabooses used on the Chicago Northwestern Railroad as well. Then later on it was retired and it was acquired by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, and most of the exterior part was painted red. It was likely used as an office for some volunteers and was likely used as a popcorn stand for a Day Out with Thomas event. Then in 2022, it was loaded onto a truck and was relocated from the spot where it stood adjacent to the water tower to a different part of the property. It was moved closer to 10th Street and is parallel to this street as well. Also, it serves as the office for rail explorers on the railroad these days as well. What you see right behind me is Chicago Great Western 4102. Chicago Great Western 4102 was built by Pullman Standard somewhere in the 1900s and is a wooden boxcar. The original number to this car is unknown. Later it would be renumbered 4102. This car spent several years hauling cargo that a boxcar like this one hauled many years ago whenever it was used on freight trains. Then when the Chicago Great Western Railroad merged to Chicago Northwestern in 1968, It may be possible this car was likely used by that railroad. Then it was retired and later it was acquired by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, where it is seen today. Also, it is parked on the siding near downtown Boone next to where the electric line goes, and it can be found adjacent to the Armors Co-op elevator as well. What you see right behind me is Chicago Great Western 4044. Chicago Great Western 4044 was possibly built by Pullman Standard somewhere in the 1900s and is a wooden boxcar. The original number to this car is unknown. Later, it would be renumbered 4044. This car spent several years hauling cargo that a boxcar like this one hauled many years ago whenever it was used on freight trains. Then when the Chicago Great Western Railroad merged to Chicago Northwestern in 1968, it may be possible this car was likely used by that railroad. Then it was retired and later it was acquired by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, where it is seen today. Also, it is parked on the siding near downtown Boone next to where the electric line goes, and it can be found adjacent to the Armors Co-op elevator as well. What you see right behind me is Chicago Northwestern 262-723. Chicago and Northwestern 262-723 was built somewhere in the 1900s and is a snowplow. The back part of the plow is a gondola and the plow was made from a gondola car. Later it was added with a snowplow. It spent many years clearing snow off the rails. This snowplow would be coupled to one or more locomotives which would push it through the snow and clear the tracks when it was used on the railroad many years ago. Later, it was acquired by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, where it is seen today. Also, it is parked on the siding near downtown Boone next to where the electric line goes, and it can be found adjacent to the Armors Co-op elevator as well. What you see right behind me is Chicago Northwestern 11068. Chicago and Northwestern 11068 was built somewhere in the 1960s and is a bay window caboose. This caboose was used on freight trains on the Chicago and Northwestern Railroad and was also used as the train crew's office and is one of many Chicago and Northwestern cabooses used on the Chicago Northwestern Railroad as well. Then later on it was retired and it was acquired by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa. It was often used on the excursion train whenever it was needed for the excursion train, especially with the Thomas the Tank Engine events, but on the train that would go through the valley. Then it was decided it would be put on display adjacent to the James H. Andrew Museum building. In 2018, it was being repainted and re-stenciled till it was all complete. Today, it can be found here on display at the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, where it is preserved today. What you see right behind me is Fort Dodge Des Moines in Southern 2254. Fort Dodge Des Moines in Southern 2254 was built by General Electric in Schenectady, New York in 1943 and is the 17903 diesel locomotive built by that factory and is a 60-ton center cab type diesel locomotive. It was originally built for the United States Air Force and was originally numbered 7858. It spent many years transporting Army equipment on freight cars whenever it was used by the Air Force. Later, it was retired and in 1983, it was purchased by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa. It was then renumbered 2254 and lettered Fort Dodge Des Moines in Southern and had a shade of yellow similar to that used by the Fort Dodge Des Moines and Southern Railroad. In 2012, it was repainted in an attractive orangish yellow and white paint scheme. Today, it is preserved here at the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad, and it is sometimes seen rolling on the tracks and is used to pull the freight cars down the tracks, and it is even used to rotate equipment around as well.
What you see right behind me is Metra 1628.
Metra 1628 was built by the St. Louis Car Company in St. Louis, Missouri in 1971 and is a Highliner coach. This car was originally used by the Illinois Central Railroad on commuter trains going to and from Chicago Millennium Station and hauled passengers for many years, and this is its original number. Then when the Illinois Central and Gulf Mobile and Ohio railroads merged to become the Illinois Central Gulf in 1972, it was used by that railroad till Metro took over in 1987 and used the car for many years. And the car saw service on the system for many years. Then it was retired and was likely stored away. In 2007, it was acquired by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, where it is seen today.
What you see right behind me is Metra 1511.
Metra 1511 was built by the St. Louis Car Company in St. Louis, Missouri in 1971 and is a Highliner coach. This car was originally used by the Illinois Central Railroad on commuter trains going to and from Chicago Millennium Station and has hauled passengers for many years, and this is its original number. Then when the Illinois Central and Gulf Mobile and Ohio railroads merged to become the Illinois Central Gulf in 1972, it was used by that railroad till Metra took over in 1987, and it saw service over the system for many years. Then it was retired and was likely stored away. In 2007, it was acquired by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, where it is preserved today.
What you see right behind me is the Chicago South Shore and South Bend flat car.
The Chicago South Shore and South Bend flat car was built somewhere in the 1900s and is a depressed center flat car. This car's original number is unknown. It spent many years in freight service on the Chicago South Shore and South Bend, hauling cargo that a flat car like this one hauled many years ago. Later, it was retired and was acquired by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa. Also, it is used as a portable substation car, and also only about a quarter of the car is sticking outside of the wall of the shed as well.
What you see right behind me is Iowa State Power Plant 1858.
Iowa State Power Plant 1858 was built by General Electric in Schenectady, New York in 1944 and is the 180/42nd diesel locomotive built by that factory and is a 45-ton center cab type diesel locomotive. It was originally built for the United States Army and was originally numbered 8534. The locomotive was used to haul Army equipment on freight cars as well. Then it was later sold to the Iowa State University Power Plant and was renumbered 1858 and was repainted in the Iowa State colors of cardinal and gold. It was used to switch coal cars around along the remnants of the old Ames and College Railway. Then it was purchased by the Fort Dodge, Des Moines and Southern Railroad. Also, the number on the locomotive means the year Iowa State College of Agriculture and Mechanic Arts, the predecessor of Iowa State University, began. It was then moved to the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, where it is today, and is mainly used for moving equipment around as well. Also, it is primarily used to move Charles City Western Trolley Car 50 to position whenever trolley operations are happening, and also it is also used to put the trolley away as well when it's the end of the day of trolley operations.
What you see right behind me is Chicago Great Western 4083.
Chicago Great Western X4083 was built in 1940 and is a flat car. This car spent several years hauling cargo that a flat car like this one once hauled as well. Originally, it was built for the Chicago Great Western Railroad and was likely originally numbered 83885. It spent many years on freight trains and would also haul loads that a flat car like this one would haul many years ago. Then it was put into maintenance of way service, where it was renumbered X4083. Then, in 1968, the Chicago Great Western Railroad merged to the Chicago and Northwestern Railroad, and it kept the number and continued maintenance of way service. Then, in the 1980s, it was retired and was stored at Camp Dodge Training Site in Johnston, Iowa, and it was used for soldiers to be trained with loading Army equipment onto rail cars. Then in 2021, the training site decided they wanted to relocate the three flat cars and make room for future projects. The training center got a hold of the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad and thought they might like to have this, and they accepted the offer. It was loaded onto a truck and was relocated to the railroad. Today, it is preserved here at the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, where it is preserved today.
What you see right behind me is Chicago
And Northwestern
2086.
Chicago and Northwestern 2086 was built in 1951 and is a flat car. This car spent several years hauling cargo that a flat car like this one has hauled many years ago. Originally, it was built for the Chicago Great Western Railroad and its original number is unknown. Then it was put into maintenance of way service and was given this number. Then in 1968, the railroad merged to the Chicago and Northwestern Railroad and it continued maintenance of way service. Then in the 1980s, it was retired and was stored at Camp Dodge Training Site in Johnston, Iowa, and it was used for soldiers to be trained with loading Army equipment onto rail cars. Then in 2021, the training site decided they wanted to relocate the 3 flat cars and make room for future projects. The training center got a hold of the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad and thought they might like to have this, and they accepted the offer. It was loaded onto a truck and was relocated to the railroad. Today, it is preserved here at the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, where it is preserved today.
What you see right behind me is Chicago Great Western 4100.
Chicago Great Western 4100 was built by Pullman Standard somewhere in the 1900s and is a wooden boxcar. The original number to this car is unknown. Later, it would be renumbered 4100. This car spent several years hauling cargo that a boxcar like this one hauled many years ago, as it was used on freight trains. Then, when the Chicago Great Western Railroad merged to Chicago Northwestern in 1968, it may be possible this car was likely used by that railroad. Then it was retired and was acquired by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa. It sat near downtown Boone, and then about 2022, it was moved closer to the railroad's depot. Today, it is preserved here at the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, where it is today.
What you see right behind me is Chicago and Northwestern X262-707.
Chicago and Northwestern 262-707 was built somewhere in the 1940s and is a snowplow. The back part of the plow is a gondola, and the plow was made from a gondola car. Later, it was added with a snowplow. It spent many years clearing snow off the rails. This snowplow would be coupled to one or more locomotives, which would push it through the snow and clear the tracks when it was used on the railroad many years ago. Later, it was acquired by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, where it is seen today.
What you see right behind me is Chicago Great Western 285.
Chicago Great Western 285 was built somewhere in the 1900s and is a tanker car. This tanker car was used on the Chicago Great Western Railroad for many years and was used on freight trains hauling some different kinds of liquids. It may have hauled many years ago as well. It was even used on mixed freight trains years ago, or may have been used on a line of tanker cars looking identical to it as well. Then later on, it was retired and it was then acquired by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, where it is today.
What you see right behind me is Chicago and Northwestern 45963.
Chicago Northwestern 45963 was likely built in the 1940s and is a flat car. It was used for the Chicago Northwestern Railroad many years ago and would be used on freight trains for many years when used for the railroad. Then later on, this car was retired and then it was acquired by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, where it is today. And sometimes it can be seen rolling on the railroad line and is used for maintenance use when being carried on the tracks as well.
What you see right behind me is Hallett Dock Company 9704.
Hallett Dock Company 9704 was built around the 1900s and is a hopper car. It was used by the Hallett Dock Company in Duluth, Minnesota for many years and was used to haul sand and gravel for many years. Then later on it was retired and then it was acquired by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, where it can be seen today.
What you see right behind me is Fort Dodge Des Moines in Southern X28.
Fort Dodge Des Moines in Southern X28 was built somewhere in the 1900s and is a boxcar. The original number to this car may be unknown. It is believed to have originally been numbered with a 4-digit number. This car was used on freight trains for several years on the railroad. Then it was likely put into maintenance of way use and was renumbered X28 for maintenance of way. Then later it was retired and it was then acquired by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa. Later it was placed on a section of tracks. Then it was placed onto the tracks that connect with the active rails in 2012. Today it is preserved here at the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, where it is seen today.
What you see right behind me is Kennecott Mining Corp. 548.
Kennecott Copper Company 548 was possibly built by Differential Steel Car Company in Findlay, Ohio around the 1900s and is a side dump gondola car. It could be possible it was originally used by the Kennecott Copper and possibly was numbered this. It was likely used for hauling around rock ballast for the railroad construction and maintenance, but was not designed to haul copper ore. Then later on, this car was retired and later it was acquired by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, where it is preserved today.
What you see right behind me is Kennecott Mining Corp. X504.
Kennecott Copper Company X504 was possibly built by Differential Steel Car Company in Findlay, Ohio around the 1900s and is a side dump gondola car. It could be possible it was originally used by the Kennecott Copper. It was likely used for hauling around rock ballast for railroad construction and maintenance, but it was not designed to haul copper ore. Then later on, this car was retired and it was acquired by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, where it is today.
What you see right behind me is Chicago and Northwestern X250 522.
Chicago and Northwestern X250 522 was built somewhere in the 1900s and is a flat car. The original number of this car is unknown. It is believed to have been built as a boxcar for the Chicago Northwestern Railroad many years ago and would be used on freight trains for many years when used for the Chicago Northwestern Railroad. It was later rebuilt as a flat car. Then it was likely put into maintenance of way service and was renumbered X250 522. Then later on, this car was retired and then it was acquired by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, where it is today and sometimes can be seen rolling down the tracks. And I believe that it is used to have people cut tree branches to keep them out of the way of passing trains because of the platform that was built on top of it as well.
What you see right behind me is Minneapolis and St. Louis 23652.
Minneapolis and St. Louis 23652 was likely built in 1947 and is a flat car. It was used to carry cargo that a flat car like this one once hauled on the railroad many years ago. Then in 1960, the Minneapolis and St. Louis Railroad merged into the Chicago Northwestern Railroad, and the car was used by that railroad but retained its number. And I think it might have been renumbered 16018 before the time of the merger. Then in 1967, the Chicago and Northwestern renumbered the car back to its original number. Then in the 1980s, it was retired and was stored at Camp Dodge Training Site in Johnston, Iowa, and it was used for soldiers to be trained with loading Army equipment onto rail cars. Then in 2021, the training site decided they wanted to relocate the 3 flat cars and make room for future projects. The training center got a hold of the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad and thought they might like to have this, and they accepted the offer. It was loaded onto a truck and was relocated to the railroad. Today, it is preserved here at the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, where it is preserved today.
What you see right behind me is Hallett Dock Company 9913.
Hallett Dock Company 9913 was built around the 1900s and is a hopper car. It was used by the Hallett Dock Company in Duluth, Minnesota for many years and was used to haul sand and gravel for many years. Then later on it was retired and then it was acquired by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, where it can be seen preserved today.
What you see right behind me is Kennecott Mining Corp 702.
Kennecott Copper Corp 703 was built by General Electric in Schenectady, New York in 1926 and is the 10658th electric locomotive built by that factory and is a steeple cab type electric locomotive. The company it was used for originally was the Utah Copper Company and worked for the company in Bingham Canyon, Utah. The locomotive's body was originally painted black while being used by the Utah Copper. This is also its original number. It was used for many years to haul carloads of ore from the mine. It was repainted yellow with black trim as well. Then it was retired and in 1986 it was acquired by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa and is currently parked in the boneyard and is likely awaiting cosmetic restoration one day as well.
What you see right behind me is Chicago and Northwestern 161-710.
Chicago and Northwestern 161-710 was built by Pullman Standard in 1969 and is a 50-foot boxcar. This car was used many years ago on freight trains on the Chicago Northwestern Railroad and was even used for hauling cargo such as boxes, rolls of paper, merchandise, and a lot of items it may have hauled in the past. Then later on, this boxcar was retired and then it was acquired by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, where it is today. Presently, it is parked adjacent to the boneyard as well.
Okay, I'm going to show you all the signal lights and crossing signals they have on this part of the museum portion of the railroad's depot. So starting here, you can see a crossing signal with the stop sign like you'd see at an intersection or wherever you'd see one on a paved road. But it works just like it would just swing out, tell you when to stop when the lights are flashing, and look, these lights are flashing too. Here's a signal that was probably used by the Chicago Northwestern until it ended up here. Let's look at more. Okay, you can see right here 3 more signals and you can see the difference they are. That one has hands, which it would go down to indicate whether to stop or go, as the train would. And these two signals I'm standing between would work in a similar manner. And I would say that the Chicago Northwestern Railroad owned these till they ended up here. And last but not least, here's a wigwag signal that is also here. And also, the wigwag signal works quite differently compared to the crossing signal we just looked at. And this looks like a button you'd see at a traffic light. Also, this sign says wigwag to warn of oncoming traffic of an approaching train. But this, instead of controlling it, the train causes it to go off when it's approaching the crossing. So they set this up like this. So to operate, push button. So to operate, push button, hold for 5 seconds, and that's how it's done. Okay, you can see right here our rail bikes. This is called Rail Explorers, and also this thing was brought here in 2023 or 2022. And also these bikes, you could ride through the valley on the same tracks the dining train and the excursion train goes over through the valley. And also, if you want to ride, you'll have to make arrangements inside that blue building to my right, or find out online what to do. Also, there are 20 of these, and also to find online, don't go to the Boone and Scenic's website, go to Rail Explorer's website. That's where you'll want to go. What you see right behind me is Union Pacific 1098.
Union Pacific 1098 was built by Alco in Schenectady, New York in 1942 and is the 696 62nd diesel locomotive built by that factory and is an S2 type diesel locomotive. This locomotive was never actually owned by the Union Pacific, but it was actually owned by the Terminal Railroad Association of St. Louis in St. Louis, Missouri, and it was originally numbered 575. For many years, it was known to switch cars in and out of the facility. Then it was purchased by Relco and was renumbered 1031. The locomotive later went to ADM in Denison, Iowa, and switched cars at the grain elevator. In 1997, it was donated to the Iowa Railroad Historical Society by the company. It was moved to Boone, Iowa by the Union Pacific Railroad. When it got to the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad, it was repainted as a Union Pacific locomotive and is seen in the paint scheme you see on it today as well. In 1998, it was renumbered 1098, and that number is significant in that it signifies the date the locomotive was back in service, which was on October of 1998. It operated pulling trains for a while till about 2011 and was awaiting certain parts that needed to be replaced and have it operate again once the time got closer as well. But at this point, it is still out of service, and the railroad hopes to get it back in operating condition soon. Today, it can be seen here at the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, where it is preserved today.
What you see right behind me is Minneapolis and St. Louis X6.
Minneapolis and St. Louis X6 was possibly built by Russell Snowplow Company in Ridgeway, Pennsylvania, likely somewhere in the 1950s, and is a wedge snowplow. This snowplow would be coupled to one or more locomotives, which would push it through the snow and clear the tracks when it was used on the railroad many years ago. Then, in 1960, the railroad merged to the Chicago Northwestern Railroad and was then used by that railroad to clear snow off the tracks as well. Then later on, it was retired and was then acquired by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa. It was then parked in a small siding near the boneyard for quite some time. In 2023, the plow was then moved on the property that the James H. Andrew Museum and Depot is located on. It is still in this spot, awaiting a thorough refurbishment and repaint, and will eventually be displayed on the track that leads up to the James H. Andrew Museum, as it is planned to as well.
What you see right behind me is Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad 8419. Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad 8419 was built by the Datong Locomotive Works in Datong, China in 1989 and is the 8419th steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 282 Mikado type steam locomotive and is a JS class steam locomotive. It was purchased new when it came out of the factory, and some of the crews of the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad purchased the locomotive when they went over to China to make arrangements to purchase it. A lot of people were thinking that it was actually the last commercially built steam locomotive in the world, but in reality, the last commercially built steam locomotive is actually another Mikado, but is an SY class steam locomotive and is the SY 1772. That one was built by the Tangshan Locomotive Works in Tangshan, China in 1999. It is still in the country it was built in, and China was the last country to commercially build steam locomotives as well. About this locomotive, it also has a vintage look, but was built in the late 1980s. So when the locomotive was purchased by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad, this is what happened. Back in 1988, the National Geographic came in the mail to one of the board members who is now deceased and showed a page of a brand new steam engine that was under construction, and the idea came to the founding board of directors while the railroad was trying to figure out how to fix up a couple steam engines and thought it'd be cheaper to buy a new one. Also, when the locomotive was ready to depart China, it was being loaded onto a ship at a harbor in China. When the locomotive arrived in the United States, it was being unloaded from the ship in Long Beach, California, and it suffered damage when it was hoisted up by crane. They dropped it and rigged it up and brought it over to put on a flat car, and they heard a big bang. The sling that was underneath the locomotive to raise it flipped up underneath the cab and bent it upward. When it was unloaded from the ship in California, it was loaded onto a flat car for its journey to its new home in Iowa. Once it arrived, it was repaired by the railroad and they were able to get it running again. This was the first steam locomotive to be shipped to the country from China. Also, The locomotive had a red metal arch banner over the headlight on the smokebox door with Chinese notes and a gold star on top, and a red metal rectangular board with Chinese letterings as well, and they are currently in storage. It all translates in Chinese: "We are friends in the world. Even though our two countries are far apart, we feel like close neighbors." The locomotive's tender used to have Chinese words on it, which translates in Chinese: "The locomotive is a dragon that swims through the blue ocean between two friendly nations." Then later it got repainted and stenciled with the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad logo, which is the Fort Dodge Des Moines and Southern Railroad inspired logo. It was out of service for the 2022 season for a 1472 inspection and to comply with the new FRA regulations. Also, it started running Saturdays in 2003, and it is used for operations from Memorial Day to the end of October, usually Saturdays. Also, the locomotive's whistle was originally a Chinese 5-chime whistle it had, and then it was given a new whistle, which is a whistle that appears to have been built for an American-style steam locomotive. Also, the locomotive was then added with a second whistle valve in 2014, which it uses up to 2 whistles. Also, this locomotive is one of many JS-class steam locomotives still around, and the others are still in China. Also, the locomotive stopped running after operation in 2017 and was taken out of service for an overhaul. It spent years being overhauled before it could operate again. Then in 2023, it finally got steamed up once again as well and was back in operation on the railroad and started pulling the railroad's main excursion train through the Des Moines River Valley as well. Then the diamond logo of the railroad saying the Scenic line was placed onto the smokestack, and the locomotive was given more of a Boone and Scenic Valley look, but some Chinese letters remained. Also, the locomotive originally had some components painted red. In 2024, the red portions, excluding the handles and knobs in the cab, and even the exterior of the engine, were painted over with black paint to make the steam engine look more Americanized. As well as that, the Fort Dodge Des Moines and Southern inspired logo was eliminated from being on the tender, and it was stenciled with a different font saying Boone and Scenic Valley on it as well. Today, it can be found here at the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, and normally pulls trains Saturdays from Memorial Day weekend till the end of October as well. What you see right behind me is the Fort Dodge Des Moines and Southern Boone Freight Depot. The Fort Dodge Des Moines and Southern Boone Freight Depot was built in the 1900s and has always been in this location. The structure is located on 11th and Marshall Streets. For many years, it was used for loading and unloading freight on and off of boxcars and refrigerator cars. In 1968, when the Chicago Northwestern Railroad bought the line, it was used by that railroad, where they would do the same role as the Fort Dodge Des Moines and Southern Railroad did as well. Later, it was retired and it was empty for years. And the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad had it stay around for years to come. And luckily, it never got demolished. Then in 2024, the interior was being renovated. Today, the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad uses it as the museum's exhibit and archive storage room as well. What you see right behind me is Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad 751. Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad 751 was built by Electromotive Division in LaGrange, Illinois in 1957 and is the 228/81st diesel locomotive built by that factory and is a GP9M type diesel locomotive. Originally, it was built as a GP9 and was originally built for the Minneapolis and St. Louis Railroad and was originally numbered 603. Then, when the Minneapolis and St. Louis Railroad merged to the Chicago Northwestern Railroad in 1960, it was used by that railroad and kept the number. It was rebuilt as a GP9M and was then renumbered 4304 in 1972. Then, in 1988, it was sold to the Fox Valley Railroad and kept the number. Later, it was used by the Wisconsin Central Railroad and again kept the number. Later, it was acquired by the Wisconsin and Southern Railroad and it was renumbered 751. Later, it was then sold to the Midwest Locomotive Works that leased it to Farmers Co-op Company in Dow's, Iowa, but it was never relettered for that company and it retained its Wisconsin and Southern livery. Then, in 2020, Midwest Locomotive Works and the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad traded it for Union Pacific 2921, which was built for the Southern Pacific Railroad. Today, this locomotive can be found here at the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa, and sometimes it pulls the excursion train through the valley as well, and presently, it still retains its Wisconsin and Southern livery and may possibly someday be repainted to the livery of Minneapolis and St. Louis Railroad or Chicago Northwestern Railroad as well. Okay, I'm going to show you all this little shed right here that has all these old railroad tools and such, as well as this speeder, and I'll get behind the camera and pan around inside the shed, but we have to stay behind the chain. And also, there's a sign right here saying it was donated by someone, but I'll get to that part. So I'll get behind the camera and show you around, so here you go. Okay, so as I pan along, so here's some tools that we're looking at, as well as some railroad tracks, a velocipede. There's some tools on the wall as well, some oiling cans, and there's the speeder. And feel free to pause and read this, Lloyd Nelson's collection, and yeah, that's all there is inside this shed. What you see right behind me is Union Pacific 2064. Union Pacific 2064 was built by Pullman in 1914 and is an RPO car. Originally, this car was numbered 1266. It was the first car with the number 1266 on the Union Pacific roster. For many years, it was used to have mail sorted on board, and the mail would be picked up and dropped off without the train stopping as well. In 1915, It was then renumbered 2064. In 1968, it was then retired. In 1970, it was then donated to the Steuer Museum in Grand Island, Nebraska, where it was on display for many years. Then, in 2021, it was listed for sale on Ozark Mountain Railcar. Then, it was purchased by the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad in Boone, Iowa. In 2024, it was lifted off of its trucks and they were loaded onto a semi-trailer, and the car body was loaded onto a separate semi-trailer, and it headed for the new home at the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad. Then the car was mounted back on its trucks once it arrived on the site. Then it was going under cosmetic restoration. In 2025, the repaint was all complete. Then it was eventually placed on display on the museum track for all to see and enjoy. Well, I hope y'all enjoyed learning about trains with me today in Matthew Lap Train Guy. Also, I hope to see y'all again real soon, and if you didn't subscribe to the channel yet, the subscribe button is just down below the video screen. And if you didn't give the Facebook page a like yet, here's where you'll want to go. And if you didn't give the Instagram page a follow yet, here's where you'll want to go as well. Also, be sure to get your merch at teesprings.com. The link is in the description box below, along with the Facebook and Instagram pages. And as always, remember to subscribe to the Train Guy. So this is Matthew Lapp, host of Matthew Lapp Train Guy, sign now. Until next time, all aboard.